Good evening. What I'm about to relate occurred in 2015. I have a friend named Lucas whose father owns a rural property in a small locality, about 25 kilometers from our city. The farm itself is approximately 7 kilometers from this town, situated in a rural area. I met Lucas in 2009, and he always told me that his father had acquired the farm around 1995. At that time, Lucas was still a child, and his father was still married to his mother and bought the farm for the family, where they spent weekends. He described that back then the farm had a cozy house, rustic in style but very well built, with a swimming pool and a leisure area around the house. When his parents were married, he and his sister were young and went there often, bringing relatives and friends, and the family frequently gathered at the farm. The farm's area was quite extensive, and the main house was in the middle of a large plot of land. There was a neighboring caretaker's house, located about 150 meters from the main house. The farm also had a soccer field and an extensive eucalyptus plantation covering a good portion of the property. One night, Lucas told me that something very strange happened at the farm. He, his sister, his parents, and some relatives were there. It was a Sunday night leading into Monday. Suddenly, a creature began to pound on the house door. Everyone woke up startled and rushed to the living room. The creature seemed to be a wild beast attempting to enter the house but failed. It kept banging on the door and growling as it moved around the house, searching for a way in. Everyone was in shock, but fortunately the beast did not manage to get inside. At dawn, still very frightened, they left. The caretaker also got scared, and the next day returned to his home. At daybreak, he no longer wanted to stay at the farm and left. Since then, neither Lucas's mother nor he, nor his sister, nor his father returned to the farm. Lucas's father, however, still goes there during the day, but never again had the courage to sleep there, even 4 years after the incident. Time passed, and Lucas's parents separated. The farm ended up being abandoned. His father sometimes goes there just to check on it, but always during the day. He never considered selling the farm because he has many memories of his married life there. But the place is deteriorating. The pool cracked, the walls of the leisure area collapsed, and the only thing that remains in good condition is the house. Lucas's father, although he never contemplated selling the property, never again had the courage to stay there at night. One day, I challenged Lucas and told him we would spend a night at that farm. Lucas hesitated, saying he wouldn't go, but that he would lend the farm if I wanted to spend a night there. He instructed me to pick up the farm key from his grandmother, who lived in the neighboring town. I went there with my friend Emerson, and we got the key. When we arrived at Lucas's grandmother's house, she received us with a certain coldness and warned us that there was something strange at the farm and that we should be careful. Even so, we continued our journey to the farm. We arrived at night and it was already very dark. We had difficulty finding the farm entrance because the dirt road was full of eucalyptus trees that blocked the view. We finally managed to reach the house and turn on the lights. I called my friend Emerson and we settled in. The farm was very simple but well maintained. We set up our things and started drinking and listening to music on the porch. There was no internet there, but we managed to have some fun, and around 1 a.m. we decided to go to sleep. When we were lying down, around 3:30 a.m., I heard a noise coming from outside near the window. I became alert, not knowing what it could be. Soon the sound grew even louder, as if someone was trying to bang on the living room door. The banging was so strong that it woke Emerson. I quickly locked the door, but the noise outside didn't stop. We continued to hear growls and footsteps circling around the house. It seemed the creature was trying to get in. The situation intensified when the creature banged on the kitchen door in the back and continued its growls and footsteps. I was already in a panic, believing we wouldn't be able to escape. The noise lasted until about 4 a.m. and then stopped. We remained silent for a long time and finally managed to sleep until dawn. When day came, we ran out of the farm and went to Lucas's grandmother's house, where we handed over the key. She simply said, "I warned you, that place is hopeless." I explained what happened and she just shook her head without surprise. Back in the city, I called Lucas and told him what had happened. He laughed and said, "Who's the chicken now?" Since then, the farm has become even more deserted, with the creature still roaming the area. Lucas's father still goes there occasionally, but at night the farm remains abandoned, and perhaps this thing roams the house even when it's empty. Good night. So before you settle in, take a moment to hit that like button on the video and subscribe to the channel. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from and what time it is there, right now. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that gentle background hum, and let's drift together into tonight's journey. Hello, my name is Julia. I am a nature hiking enthusiast, and on a certain weekend I gathered a group of friends for a long trek through the forest surrounding our city. We were all excited about the prospect of spending the day outdoors, enjoying the natural beauty that surrounded us. We began our journey at sunrise, each of us carrying backpacks with food, water, and camping gear. The forest was lush and vibrant, with a variety of wildlife and abundant vegetation around us. As the day progressed, we explored winding trails and crossed crystal clear streams. We talked and laughed as we walked, sharing life stories and experiences. It was a day of bonding and deep connection with nature that we would never forget. However, as the sun began to set on the horizon and night approached rapidly, we realized we needed to start preparing for our return. The day's warmth gave way to a cool breeze, and the forest began to shroud itself in an aura of mystery and darkness. We decided to take a shortcut that we thought would lead us back to the starting point more quickly. As we advanced along the narrow trail, the silence of the forest began to unnerve us. It was then that I heard terrifying howls echoing through the forest, making our hearts pound in our chests. We exchanged nervous glances, aware that we were being watched by something unknown, and one of us even whispered, "Could it be a werewolf?" That was the last thing I wanted to hear. I involuntarily trembled, remembering the old stories about these types of supernatural creatures that haunted the forests. However, we didn't have time to let fear paralyze us. We needed to find a way out of the forest before it was too late. We decided to continue walking together, keeping calm and avoiding any noise that might attract the attention of that thing. We continued to advance cautiously, using our flashlights to illuminate the path ahead. As we moved through the darkness, keeping a watchful eye and sharp ears for any sign of the werewolf, we felt the tension in the air increase with every step. Every sound of a breaking branch and those distant howls made us flinch, but we kept moving forward, determined to get out of the forest alive. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, we spotted a faint light from lanterns marking the end of the trail. With a collective sigh of relief, we now quickened our pace, running towards the safety of the campsite. When we finally emerged from the forest, all breathless and sweaty, yet grateful to be safe, we embraced, sharing a feeling of relief. That night, as we gathered around the bonfire at the campsite, sharing the story of what we had just experienced, we all remained apprehensive, imagining that that creature might still invade our camp. However, by the grace of good God, this did not happen, and I believe it was because of our bonfire that kept that creature away. Good night. Good evening. My name is Brenner, and what I am about to relate happened many years ago when I was still single. I was a solitary fisherman and used to camp in the forest. On one particular night, something was about to happen that would change my life forever. Before midnight, as I was preparing my bonfire and arranging my fishing gear, two indigenous people suddenly appeared in the clearing. Initially, I was startled by that unexpected presence, but I soon realized that the indigenous people were there with a specific purpose. In a solemn and urgent manner, they tried to communicate to me that I was in danger. They spoke a strange language, but gestures and facial expressions conveyed the seriousness of the situation. They warned that that particular night was dangerous because a werewolf roamed the forest. Although I initially doubted the credibility of the indigenous people's warning, I decided to remain at my camp. I was a practical and skeptical man. I didn't believe in scary legends and myths. However, as the night progressed and the full moon rose in the sky, a feeling of unease began to settle in my heart. The sounds of the forest became more sinister, and a strange sensation of being watched disturbed me, until suddenly, as if it had emerged from the shadows, the werewolf appeared. It was an enormous and terrifying creature, half man and half wolf. Its eyes glowed with a wild intensity. I could barely believe what was before my eyes. In a panic, I began to scream for help, remembering the indigenous people who had warned me about that danger. And as if they had heard my desperate call, the indigenous people emerged from the shadows, ready to act. With skill and determination, the indigenous people fought by my side against that beast. Using their spears and knowledge of the forest, they managed to weaken that creature. With a furious howl, the werewolf retreated into the depths of the forest. Hours later, the indigenous people revealed to me that that beast was, in fact, one of them, another indigenous person who also lived in their village, and that the mission of the two was to protect anyone who entered the forest when he was in his transformation. Since that night, I have never again underestimated the power of the legends and myths that inhabit the forests. I decided to abandon that solitary life, found a girlfriend, and ended up getting married, moving to the city. And these memories will stay with me until the day I die. Good night. My name is Joseph Aldo. The year was 2007. I was driving in my car with my son Lucas to my farm, after receiving a call from my caretaker that something very strange had attacked my animals. While we were on that dirt road, my son Lucas observed the scenery with a certain excitement and anticipation, wanting to find out what had happened at our farm. But my mind was agitated with worries. According to my caretaker, a pig had been brutally killed. But the answer came before we even reached the farm. About 500 or 700 meters from the gate, something passed in front of my car, giving me no time to brake. The car shook violently. My heart raced as I gripped the steering wheel firmly, trying to regain control of the vehicle. "What was that, Dad?" Lucas asked. "I don't know, son," I replied, trying to stay calm as I looked into the darkness ahead. A sense of dread overcame me when I saw a figure moving in front of the car. It was large, emitting a low, menacing growl. Only then did I realize what was happening. We had run over some kind of very large animal. Fear chilled my blood as the creature stood directly in front of our car. Its eyes glowed in the darkness, reflecting in the headlights. That was a werewolf. The silence of the two of us staring at that beast was broken by the horrible sound of claws scraping against the car's bodywork. The werewolf was outside, hungry for revenge for the hit and run. The worst was yet to come. I ordered Lucas to stay inside the car with the doors locked while terror consumed me. I grabbed a machete that I kept behind the driver's seat and prepared to go out and face that beast. And it was at that moment that I heard a familiar sound, coming from the direction of my farm, the sound of a gunshot. I looked in the direction of the sound and saw my caretaker and friend Jose. He was emerging from the shadows with a shotgun in his hands. His face was serious as he approached the scene of the accident. "Jose, behind you!" I shouted, pointing at the werewolf that was now preparing to attack. Jose didn't hesitate, and with impressive precision, he aimed and fired, hitting the creature squarely. The thing began to scream in pain on the road as it retreated, wounded. That was our opportunity. I ran to the car and pulled Jose inside, locking all the doors. Jose, completely out of breath, asked if Lucas and I were okay. We were all in, shocked from everything that had just happened, but thanks to our caretaker's intervention, we were safe. As the werewolf limped away down the dark road, I tried to start the car, and it started, and the three of us went to the farm. We arrived and locked ourselves in the house, and that's when Jose explained that from his house, which is a small house almost next to the farm's main building, he saw my car's headlights and saw when I stopped. He thought something might be wrong and went there armed to check. That was our luck, Lucas's and mine. We knew that night would be a story to tell our grandchildren in the future. That thing never came back, but we can't guarantee it. We'll never come back. But for now, we are grateful to be alive and to have someone like Jose to protect us in times of danger. Good night.